Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Since the special operation in Ukraine or invasion started on the 24th of February, some Western countries, um, and that is United States, Great Britain, Germany, France, Italy, mostly, and their little second echelon countries supporting the club, try to isolate Russia not only economically but militarily and politically. One way to that they tried to isolate Russia was by using all their connections and their blackmail and threats to direct their orders to certain organizations in which Russia is member of or participates in. One of these organization is OPEC. It's the organization of oil producing countries in the world. And as you know, Russia has a lot of its revenue coming out of oil sales and natural gas sales. So they tried these countries, some Western countries, the Russia calls it the monolithic West or the Western countries, they try to put pressure on OPEC to even kick Russia out of OPEC, organization of oil producing countries. Um, so I have an article here that talks about a visit that Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, um, he conducted a visit in Saudi Arabia where he met the OPEC ministers and leaders of the countries members of the OPEC. And the meeting was not, the meeting was not a cold meeting as the Russians call collective West expected to be. This article comes from Reuters from May 31st, 2022, and the title states Russia and Saudi foreign ministers prize OPEC plus, says Moscow. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met Saudi counterpart Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud in Riyadh on Tuesday, and both met praised the level of cooperation inside OPEC plus. The Russian Foreign Ministry said the comments were issued amid Western media reports that some members of OPEC Plus, an alliance of OPEC members and their allies, were considering removing Russia from the group. And I'm quoting, they noted the stabilizing uh, effect that the tight cooperation between Russia and Saudi Arabia has on world markets for hydrocarbons in the strategically important sector. End quote, the ministry said in a statement on its website. There was no immediate comment from the Saudi Arabia outside of business hours. Lavrov arrived in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday and is expected to meet with other foreign ministers from the Gulf Cooperation Council (GCC) states, Saudi state media reported. OPEC Plus is set to stick to an oil production deal agreed last year at its meeting on June 2nd and raise July output targets by 432,000 barrels per day, six OPEC Plus sources told Reuters last week, rebuffing Western calls for a faster increase to lower surging prices. OPEC Plus was formed in 2016 and assigned production cuts among its members to keep oil markets stable and act against price collapses, particularly as economies shrank sharply during the COVID pandemic. Russia is a leading member of the OPEC Plus, along with some ex-Soviet states and other countries. The Wall Street Journal, quoting OPEC delegates, suggested exempting Russia from OPEC Plus could potentially paved the way for other producers to pump significantly more crude oil as sought by the United States and European nations. So the collective West tried to kick Russian out, but have the other countries have a more higher output of oil on the market to offset Russia's, um, you know, how do you call it that? Trying to be set out or kicked out of the OPEC. So therefore, losing its revenues made out of oil. So they tried to isolate Russia, and therefore the other countries had to, uh, pump more oil on the market. And the other countries of the OPEC said, "No, we can't do that. We can't." So therefore, Russia is not isolated, uh, despite the attempts of the collective West, which is actually the United States collective West. Lavrov's meeting with his Saudi counterpart came shortly after the European Union agreed on significant cuts to impose of Russian crude as part of its latest sanctions linked to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Oh, well, basically, in all the efforts of the collective West. Now, let's make this clear. When these guys are talking about the collective West, there's one country who is the main player. This is the United States. And then to show legitimacy, it's linked to other followers, to other countries from the second or third echelon, which is usually Great Britain, and now the considered European Union, and the bottom feeders from the European Union, which are everybody else except maybe France. So, as I always say, the club is owned by the plantation owner, which is the United States, and then you have the house servant, which is is Great Britain. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And then sometimes you have France as a house servant as well. And then you have the lowest of the lowest, the bottom feeders, which is the rest. Sometimes with their pride hurt, Italy and Germany sometimes are able to elevate themselves to the house servant level for a few moments and then drop back to the bottom feeding position. So when you talk about now the West or international community, this is basically what you talk about. You don't talk about the 194, 93 countries on this planet. You talk about these important countries. So to show legitimacy, you have to show number, and you show number by generalizing. World community or whatever. The West is not three countries or two countries. It's more than two countries. But that's the way of trying to show that Russia is isolated, which is not. Why is it not? It's because it has needed resources on the market. And it seems like not only with OPEC, but it's also BRICS, who's also a community of states of emerging economies that stay together, and a new club is forming. It's just a reshuffling of the whole arrangement. It seems like the big boss is losing control of its planetary plantation. And what is striking is that they in school and wherever you go and hear about Hitler and those guys and why were they around. The main reason is they claim is because Hitler wanted to rule the world. And now we see something of the same kind but a different player. But since this player is supposed to be considered good, remember, if Germany would have been able to do that in 1930s and 40s and having the world dominance, everybody would have considered that country as being good because it was the leader and could smack you whenever they wanted and impose sanctions and so on. but it lost, so therefore is considered as it is. In this case, we have United States who won, and since it won, it's considered as being good. But if you go and assess its main characteristics in a way of dealing with other countries, as I always said, is you do my way, and if they don't want to do it, they're going to talk about sanctions, they're going to talk about threats, blackmail, and then a little regime change or other things will come natural. And you can't really say anything about the new boss because the new boss is kind of like a religion where it's good, but if you ask, okay, why is it good? You can't really ask that question because if you start and look at the record, you realize that yeah, it is good, but it's not as good. And based on that value, should not ask other countries to do their bidding. You know what I mean? So it's about power and influence and interest. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.